what is this therapy? What is it all about? Reparenting is a form of therapy that speaks of the needs that we had during childhood that perhaps went unmet, and that we now in adulthood can reparent ourselves and meet those needs, and thereby develop the things that we didn't develop. Because when we're growing up, the parenting that we receive, it's the teaching. It's all the guidance we are given to be taught about life and how to be. It's our guidebook. It is our role modeling. And so whilst we got the role modeling that we did, some of it would have been helpful and some of it would have perhaps missed things out, or some of it could have been really, really bad. But whatever, most of us don't actually have all of the skills and all of the tools that we would ideally be developing in our childhood. And what happens as part of the process when we're growing up as well is we internalize the messaging that we receive from parents, and actually not just parents, but any significant people in our lives. We internalize their voices, the messages that we got from them. And transactional analysis talks about this brilliantly, actually. It's a great, great therapy. And they talk about our critical inner parent, within us in our adulthood. Often when we're being hard on ourselves, when we're not good enough, when we're perfectionistic, when we're codependent, often the messaging that is happening internally for us is we've got a little critical inner parent in our heads. And reparenting speaks to exactly that. We need to reparent that part of ourselves. So the inner parent that we have, and this is what TA talks about, is becomes more nurturing. We need to have a nurturing inner parent in ourselves as we go about our lives to help us, to see us through, to nurture us through life's difficulties. That is a far more healthy and helpful form of parent for us to have, because there will be aspects to us that are always maybe quite young. I can be working with my clients and they can be sharing stuff with me and they're upset or they're disturbed, and I'll say to them, just slow down a minute. Can you just tell me, just don't think too deeply about this, but how old do you feel right now? And they'll go, and they'll often come up with a number. Oh, I feel like I'm 8. Oh, I'm 6 years old right now. And that's what happens to us, emotionally. There are aspects to us that will always be like that. We have hurt younger selves. And perhaps it was in those moments the parenting wasn't quite what we needed. So reparenting, so if I'm working with my clients in that regard, a reparenting perspective is, so what parenting do you need now? When you're hurting now, when you're distressed now, what do you need? And that's a highly individual thing. It will be unique to all of us. But recognizing it's possibly a young part of us can give us some clues. Because sometimes when we're young, all we need is just to be heard, or just to be held, just to be acknowledged, to be cuddled, to just be given a little bit of attention or given a little bit of space. Those are the teachings that I'm trying to do with the Reparenting series. Because what also happens that I see a lot of my practice is when we are distressed or we are going through difficulty, there is this part of us that wants a parent to come and look after us a little bit. And so reparenting is about us being that parent. Because what can happen is in our desire to be looked after, we can look to others. And it isn't always healthy. Yes, I want you guys to be having supportive relationships and supportive friendships. And I love that. And that's such a beautiful part of being together. But actually when we're young and we're so vulnerable, when we're looking to others to sort of rescue us a little bit, that's when we can get into trouble. Because we're sort of searching for that parent that perhaps we didn't have in those moments. And so we look to our partners, or we look to the people we're dating, and we look outside of ourselves. That's appropriate when we're young. When we're young, we need external people and things to come and help us, because we are powerless, we are helpless. In our adulthood, we need to be careful that we don't become helpless. You know, there's this phrase, learned helplessness. We've learned to not know and be helpless, and we need other people to come and rescue us and make us okay. And they can't. People can't. People cannot do that. They can make us feel better for a short period of time, perhaps, best case scenario. But actually, that wounded part of us needs our own healing. We need to meet our own needs in those moments. Only we can take responsibility for ourselves. So the reparenting theory is fascinating in that way, because it's about recognizing that we have an inner parent that we can call on whenever we need, you know, for guidance, for soothing, for love, for affirmation. We can do that for ourselves, and indeed we should do that for ourselves, because if we're completely dependent on the other people around us giving us that, we are just that, we are dependent. We're not children anymore, we're adults. So reparenting is about recognizing our need to parent ourselves sometimes, and to feel really good about that, and to feel really empowered about it. It's a great, great piece of therapeutic work, and I think anyone can benefit from it. So there are 4 pillars to reparenting, as I've just been discussing in my posts. The first pillar is discipline. This sometimes brings up feelings for people because it can feel punitive, or it can feel restrictive, or it can feel oppressive, okay? That is not what discipline in life is. And the act of reparenting in this moment needs to acknowledge that. So it needs to acknowledge, what discipline do I need in my life? And the discipline simply speaks of looking after ourselves, giving ourselves the guidance when we get confused or we lose our way. It's a little bit of structure in our lives. You know, for all you parents out there, you'll know the structure that children do so well in. You know, when they eat, when is bedtime, when is going to be reading. It's kind of, all of that allows us to be safe in our nervous systems. We can rely on the structure, and we have the discipline to follow it through. And that teaches us, it internalizes in us an ability to do what needs to be done. For those of us who kind of struggle with procrastination, or putting things off, or not wanting stuff, or not knowing what to do, developing little routines in your life that can help you bit by bit. I think there's something about the sort of slow, methodical getting through things. When we're young and when we're distressed, we go into overwhelm. You know, I can't do it, it's too much, I don't know where to begin, etc. Whereas a calm, loving parent, what might a calm, loving parent do in that moment? Perhaps they would come in and go, okay, let's just see, what is the first thing we need to do? What's the most important thing? And then what do we need to do after that? Okay, well, that feels like a lot, so maybe we'll do that tomorrow. And can come in and bring some structure and bring some discipline to actually seeing what needs to be done and allowing that to happen. So what I say to my clients is this is an opportunity for you to write your own rule book. A lot of people say, I didn't grow up with the rule book to life. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to behave. And it's kind of, well, we've got to write our own one now. So what works for you? What do you know? Because this is so unique to you. And the most important thing, like I was saying earlier, is that it can't come from a place of being critical. We can't continue being critical parents. What would a nurturing parent do to bring discipline into this scenario, whatever it might be? So it just invites containment. You know, containment is so important for little people to feel safe. So our discipline helps us feel contained and create structure and routines and rituals so we are looked after and we feel safe, and what we need to get done gets done. So that could just be literally brushing your teeth, or it could mean literally methodically working your way through a project as best you can, bit by bit, and getting there slowly. The second thing that we speak about is we speak about self-care. For me, this is like an all-encapsulating phrase. Reparenting is self-care. It is that nurturing parent. It's that loving part of ourselves that comes in and looks after us. And we need to be looked after all the time in very mundane ways, like eating well and exercising, but also having boundaries, Also kind of being kind to ourselves. Again, not critical, but actually supportive. How can I be supportive of the life I want and also who I want to be? This is a key part of being a parent. You know, a parent is really looking after a little person. And so we have to carry that forward into our lives. And for some of us, maybe we feel we came from a bit of neglect or a bit of suffocation or just confusion. So in our adulthood, the reparenting that we need is learning. What do I need? What are my needs? And how do I go about then lovingly meeting those needs? Me. How do I do that? Again, the desire is to look outwards. I need you to meet my needs. I need you to complete me. I need you to fix me. I need you to make me okay. And that is different to getting support and leaning on someone. You know, self-care allows us to actually be self-reliant whilst inviting other people to come in and help us and support us. But we are not just handing ourselves over to other people and saying, please, you know, please rescue me from myself. We are instead saying, I'm learning, okay, again, what do I need in this moment? What parenting do I need? If I want a loving presence and I'm looking to my partner or my friends or whatever for that, what would that loving presence ideally give me? And we can honestly think and we can be like, okay, well, I just need to speak it out, or I just need to calm down. I just need to take a bit of time. I actually want to go do that gorgeous thing that I love doing and listen to my favorite song, or have a meal because I know I haven't eaten and I need to look after myself. And we begin to recognize, okay, this is what a parent would do in this situation. If a truly loving, loyal, devoted parent were to appear in these difficult moments for us, what would we want from them? That tells us what we need. And it tells us that the vast majority of those needs are ours to meet through the process of reparenting. And once we're doing that, we can then look to others for support and help and sharing. But actually, it's us that's taking care of ourselves. We take ourselves in hand. We keep ourselves okay. We do that. We do that. And the third pillar is joy. I love this because for many of us, joy is what has gone quite early for us. Many of us grow up too quickly. Many of us were dealing with serious things within our family environment. And so the joy that is inherent in being young and being little was cut too short. And so we have to have that in our adult lives. We have to experience joy. I believe it's our human right. And this isn't about, money, and this isn't about superficiality. It's about joy. It's about playfulness. It's about being relaxed. It's about being accepted. But it's also about putting effort into doing things for the sheer joy of it. And we've lost that in our lives today. Unless something's super productive or massively distracting, like all our social media and everything else, is that we just don't really make time for it. But doing stuff for the sheer joy of it is crucial for our souls. We have to do that because that increases our level of self-worth when we're meeting these needs of happiness. Whenever I speak to my clients, fundamentally what they're saying to me is I just want to be happy. And then I'm saying okay, well, let's think about what makes you happy and let's make more space and time in your life for that. Because otherwise, what are we doing? It is not self-indulgent and it is not selfish. It is so important. And we wouldn't deprive our own children of joy. And so again, in our adulthood now, we need to be that loving, excited, encouraging, playful parent that comes in and says, right, let's have some fun. What are we going to do? And this is not to be mistaken with overindulgence and sort of alcohol and drug abuse. That is not an enjoyment. That is not joy. There's something more fundamental there that we need to tap into. And then finally, as with everything, the fourth pillar is emotional regulation. Soothing, soothing, soothing. Is that not what a parent does so often? You know, as children, we're always learning, and we often have a sense of not knowing. We often have a sense of confusion. You know, the learning process is really painful actually when we're little, and that can be replicated in our adulthood, especially if, as I say, the parenting we got when we were growing up didn't quite meet the needs that we have. So we in our adulthood can almost constantly be saying, oh, that's okay. Oh, well, that doesn't really matter. I talk a lot about self-forgiveness. We can mess up so much in life and make mistakes, and we are cruel to ourselves. So I say, forgive yourself immediately. Be gentle with yourself and learn how to self-soothe. I've done the whole series on self-soothing, as you know, being kind to ourselves, making time, comforting ourselves, breathing, reassuring ourselves, saying supportive things. Is that not being an amazing parent to ourselves? That is what I want for you guys, is really all of these things. They all speak to one another, and there's so many other aspects as well that I will develop. But it's really about caring for yourself brilliantly. You know, as parents, we can be so overflowing with the effort we are prepared to put into caring for our children. And if we think, well, do I bring that same energy to caring for myself? Sometimes the answer is no. And that's what I'm talking about, and that's what reparenting talks about, is if we all can take responsibility for ourselves, if we can meet our needs, if we can calm ourselves, if we can look after ourselves, and if we can support ourselves through life, that allows us to turn up into our lives and relationships really adult. You know, there's a sort of irony here as we deal with the parent and as we deal with the child. As this happens as a matter of course in our lives, the irony is the more adult we are actually able to be, because we develop the skills, we develop the things that perhaps we didn't develop growing up. Having empathy, knowing how to calm ourselves, having a sense of perspective, appreciating everyone is different, you know, acknowledging difference, not taking things personally. These are things that ideally we would have learned and developed growing up. But for many of us, we miss these things out. So we need to develop and learn these things in adulthood. And how we do that is being the parent that's going to teach us. It's a bit of a paradox, but it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, because it speaks of different parts of ourselves. There's a part of us that's really young and unsure sometimes. There's an adult part of us that can be very productive and very sure and goes about our life. And there's also a parent in us. And we need to be aware if that parent is too critical, might be too demanding, might not actually be helpful to us. And the reparenting piece speaks of creating a nurturing, loving parent that can come into our life and that is part of us and who we are, and can look after us, meet our needs, and support us, whatever is kind of happening. And we develop the sense of competence within ourselves. Yes, I've got this. I've got my own back here. And I can use other people and invite them in and get advice and do that, but ultimately I'm in charge of myself. I look after myself, and when I go out into the world, I do so as an adult, because I'm going to be meeting my needs through loving reparenting. To whenever I'm feeling a bit young and I'm distressed and I'm hurt and I'm confused, I come in and I meet those needs, and I'm learning exactly how to do that. Best of luck with all your reparenting. Let me know your thoughts and questions, and of course I'll keep on developing this. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.